There are successful brands in the Indian car market, global car market for that matter. And then there are the mega powerhouse brands. There are brands that we always look up to because they achieve the kind of success that others can only dream of. In the case of Maruti Suzuki, there is not one, but multiple such brands. But the one that really has changed the entire complexion and dynamics of the Indian SUV market is the model that used to go by Vitara Brezza. Everybody calls it the Brezza. It is one car that has really set the market on fire, has really sort of made that segment count. And now it's all set for its second generation avatar to drive into the market. So huge buzz and excitement around that. Let's talk about that with Shashank Srivastava from Maruti Suzuki, who joins us right now. Great to see you, Shashank San.
Hi, nice to be here discussing the Brezza, Siddharth.
What a brand, right? I mean, you heard my intro. I think that's one car that maybe in many ways surpassed your expectations with its success.
Yeah, sort of, because you were right. Yeah, then when we started the Brezza, that was in March 2016 that we introduced it. We had the segment itself being just about 5% of the overall industry, the compact SUV segment. Today, it has become the largest. Last year, 21-22, it became the largest segment, surpassing the premium hatch segment, which has always traditionally been the number one segment. It's now 22% of the market. So that speaks enough for both the consumer preference and also what the brand has done to the segment itself. And that's the sign of a great brand. And you rightly pointed out, that's something which has exceeded our expectations also. Yes, so we are very happy with the way Brezza has prospered and continues to sell us very good numbers.
In fact, you shared with me 7.5 lakh Brezzas on the road already. Now that again,
Yes.
Given Maruti's might, maybe to some people is not a surprise. But like you said, it was a car that stepped into a relatively new segment. It has now pretty much become synonymous with that segment. So tell me now, when you look at, a replacement model, the new version, there's obviously a lot of expectation, but there's also a lot of anticipation for you because this is how big a chunk of your entire sales does the Brezza account for?
So we do about last year we did about 115,000 Brezzas out of the 13 lakh or so 13 lakh 50,000 60,000 vehicles that we did. So it's a fairly large chunk, almost 8-9% of our sales come from there. So that's very large. And of course, this segment itself has changed, and that's one big reason why we have made such huge changes with the new Brezza. There are a lot of trends which we observe, Siddharth, in the last 5-6 years. It has changed not only in terms of volumes, but also in fundamentally in terms of consumer preferences, the criteria for brand buying in this segment. That seems to have changed. And the new Brezza in response to those changing times for the new urban affluent Indian consumer.
Now, of course, I will clarify for those watching that yes, the model name now officially changes to Brezza, not Vitara Brezza. And you know what? Most of you who are watching will, of course, agree with that because we've seen most of you only referring to the car always as the Brezza. Now, the point you make, of course, is part of all the many questions I have about the new car, Shashank, because when it comes to the buyer today, you're right, buyer has evolved, the market has evolved, but we also find a lot of first-time buyers straight away stepping into a segment like this, and they have huge expectations. Tech is a huge expectation. So would you say that that's been a huge focus area as well?
Yes, of course, because when I talked about the trends, what we observe, we have data, of course, right from the beginning when we introduced this product. 2015-16, the top 3 buying criteria in this segment were design, the brand, and mileage. Those 3 were the top 3 criteria. There was no mention of technology or features at that time. But today, we have those 3 criteria, of course, remain pretty much the top 3 still. Yeah, but a very huge percentage of people have now started have stated that the criteria for purchase which they're looking at is also features and technology. And that has been a trend not just for this segment, but across the industry. And especially so in our new Brezza addresses those criteria for purchase of the consumers in this segment.
Now, in tier one, we of course understand what those trends are and why they're important. But would you say that this is also something that's now starting to reflect in a big way, even in tier two and three?
Absolutely. So I would say that it's not just about tier one or tier two, but the type of buyer. So there are a lot of buyers who still have a very high weightage on things like the traditional things about mileage or reliability, and but increasingly, I think as the industry has developed, some of those factors also become hygienic in nature. So that's something
Yeah.
which is assumed to be there, so it's not a differentiating factor anymore. But it does not mean that it is not an important factor for the buyer. Take fuel efficiency, for example. The fuel efficiency, when we used to have the Maruti 800 long time back, used to give us about 12, 13 kilometers to the liter. And that was the most fuel efficient car at that time. Because you had those other ones which used to give 5 and 4 and 6, if you remember.
You
But
still have
now
some of them.
yeah, you still have some of them. But now a vehicle like Brezza, the new Brezza gives 20 kilometers to the liter. Even so that's a buying it's important buying criteria. Running cost is a very important criteria for the Indian buyers. But the hygienic, it has become a sort of hygiene for all vehicles, and therefore brand differentiation happens on many other factors, including the ones like how techy it is, or uh, how rich in features and technology it is.
No, that's true. And you're absolutely right about it becoming hygiene now for more and more buyers. These are things that you take for granted, especially connectivity with smartphones and things like that as well. We did see a fair amount of success even on the previous car with some of these features because, of course, you had Smart Play Studio and you had the touch screen and everything. But now, would you say that the focus of the design is not to add them in as features, but more or less design the car with all of this as an integral part of it?
Yes, absolutely, and that's how the market is progressing. So, if you look at the new Brezza, it has got many features which are first in the industry. So, we are trying to actually be ahead of the curve. Like, for example, this has HUD, which is not there in any car in this segment. It has the telescopic steering. It's not there in any other
Yeah.
car in this segment. It has the 360 view camera, which is not there in this. There are also many things which Maruti Suzuki is first for Maruti Suzuki, not just for this segment, but across any model, like electric sunroof. We are going to have it in the new Brezza. Or, for example, we have the electric sunroof. We had the ventilated seats, which we introduced in the XL6. So there's a lot of features which we are adding in this segment, and which are like not available in any of the Maruti vehicles. Plus, of course, other things which are first for the Brezza itself. We have 6 airbags. We have the 680. We have and the engine itself is a new engine with the smart hybrid, and therefore much more fuel efficient. As I said, the fuel efficiency, which was 17, 18 for the Brezza, is now almost 20. So in that sense, it's a big improvement.
Shashank, it's been some time now. Luckily, with the previous car, you had enough time where you had already made the switch from diesel to petrol. Is that even a conversation now? You already talked about doing fantastic numbers with the current car even in the previous year.
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked this question, because if you look at this segment itself, about 6 years back, 2015, 16, 80% of the car were diesel and 20% was petrol. And at that time, it was said that even though diesel is declining in other segments, in SUV, there is no way that diesel can be, replaced with petrol vehicles. But it has in this segment. Actually, now it's the other way. You have 79% is petrol, 21% is diesel. So in that sense, there has been a huge change. And of course, the Brezza has an advantage because it's the only vehicle in this category with a 1.5 liter petrol engine. So in that sense, it's a very smooth performing and a large power engine. However, even in other competitors who have the 1 liter or a 1.2 liter, which all other competitors have that type of engine, 1.2 or 1.0 for petrol, there also the sale of petrol engine seems to have gone up. And overall, petrol engines, obviously, because there is no economic sense now to buy diesel vehicles, considering the fuel price difference is very minimal between the diesel and the petrol cars. So I think that trend has happened already in the entry SUV, and I think this will continue going forward.
No, you're right, and I agree with you in that sense that I don't think it's really a question anymore, or a worry anymore, especially for a player like yourself. You mentioned the 6 airbags. I believe ESP is also going to be standard. The previous car had a 4-star crash rating, so it's also a car that had that kind of expectation being met by a lot of people who were looking for something for their family usage or their personal usage, whether in the city or on the highway. With the new car, would you say that it's a similar sort of a proposition in safety terms?
So it has the 6 airbags. If you're talking of safety, are you talking of safety, Siddharth?
Safety, yes, also in terms of the structure, and of course the 6 airbags and ESP
Yeah,
part. I
so
know.
so uh, as a platform, of course, it is that it is based on the Suzuki fifth version of the Suzuki Hardtech platform, which is world accepted across the world for safety. Second, it has 6 airbags now. You have ESP with halo lasers, and you have the other normal features of safety which are now become standard. For example, ABS with EBD, brake assist, reverse parking sensors, and so on and so forth. So in that sense,
Right.
it is actually a very, very safe car.
All right. Now, automatic 6 speed. That's also something you mentioned. Very excited about that, and that's something I can't wait to drive. Um, Automatic in general. Of course, we've seen the market trend. We've seen what people are again, and this is not just restricted to tier one or anything like that. With the Brezza in particular, what sort of offtake do you expect? What percentage do you expect to become automatic only?
So right now for the automatic is about 6%, but I suppose it will go up substantially once we have this new Brezza. I don't have a percentage in mind that 6% will become what, but it is definitely the trend seems to be on the rise because both in these tier one and tier two cities where you have a lot of congestion and therefore so much more driving ease by the
Yeah.
use of AT. So that sense, I would expect it to keep pace with the trend in the market generally, not only for entry SUVs, but for across all segment, where the acceptance of automatic transmission seems to be going up. Of course, we have to weigh how much price affects the. So as a features, I think
Yeah.
everybody would like to have that automatic transmission, especially smooth automatics like the 6-speed 18, the Brezza. But the price point is something which may deter some people to actually go for it. That's reflected in the lower percentage at the moment for the user of AT in our country.
But concurrent to the same point, then would you have the AT offered across more than just the top variant? Because that's also what we're seeing. Like you said, price
So
does
so
play a
you
role.
come to know that at the time of the launch,
Fair
the
enough.
entire
Fair enough.
varianting, yeah, the
Yeah.
entire varianting which will have all the price points as well, which we'll announce at the time when we launch the vehicle, which is on the 30th of this month.
The reason I'm asking these questions, I know I'm not trying to sort of take information out of you that you'd want to give me today, while that would be
Yeah, I
nice.
know.
But no, I think the bigger point is that sometimes there is this tendency to assume that, oh, you know what, it's a Maruti popular model. Whether you do big things, don't do big things, it's going to still sell anyway. That
Yeah.
kind of complacency may be okay for us, on this side of the fence. Obviously, for you, I know that a lot more goes into what you're going to be adding to the vehicle and what how you're going to be positioning it. So, from that
Absolutely.
perspective, you find that even things like automatic safety, these issues for the Brezza buyer, do you think it's more important than maybe some of your other portfolio cars?
Actually, yeah, if you look at the sensitivity to the price, yes, the sensitivity of price to different segments is different. Um, so in that sense, different segments behave differently.
Yeah.
But in terms of the desirability of the feature, I think it's a common feature which everybody would want, whether it is automatic. I don't think an entry level customer says I don't want safety. I don't think a entry level customer says automatic transmission is not so good. Obviously, but then there is this price elasticity, which for demand, and which is what I think makes the difference when you see the performance of these features or these across different segments. That I suppose is a given, not only in India, across the world. You have
Sure,
different features offered at
sure.
different prices. So the desirability of the feature is a different point. The acceptability and the adoption of it might be different.
The reason I asked about the appetite, Shashank, is because, also when you look at, for example, with the Baleno, you have an AMT, while with this car, you're going with a 680. So the sophistication requirement or the kind of expectation from the buyer, that's what I was getting at, which is why I feel
Yeah.
like,
So
do they have that kind of
yeah.
an
Yeah.
appetite?
So different consumers, but what we have found that across segment the aspirational level is also increasing. So it's not no longer aspiration level is limited to the top end vehicles. Is the aspiration level is sort
Yes.
of trickling down across segments, and that's a trend also which we are closely examining.
You would continue to export the car from here as well? Would that also be now called Brezza?
Yes, we have the Brezza exports which we will continue. Yeah.
Okay, and this of course becomes one of the big new sort of launches of the year for the industry as well. One of the other things that we've seen with the previous model, which really caught on, and then we saw all the competition doing the same, was the customization. It's a very young product in terms of the appeal um, I create, and everything else that happened with it. The car, even the stock car had the two-tone roof options, and there's so much that you could do with the car to
Yeah.
individualize it. That
Yeah.
stays or becomes
Yes,
bigger,
sir, that's
maybe.
no, that stays. In fact, we have the car configurator, as you know, and we have a whole range of
Yes.
accessories, and so that all stays. I mean, that is something which is again, I think, becoming in hygienic now. The level of personalization which is now expected by the consumers, and therefore expected of the OEMs to give that type of personalization or different options that I think exists.
So in terms of overall, the kind of performance you expect from this model then in the marketplace, a year down the line, when we're talking, how much of an enhancement are you expecting in terms of, how it'll do compared to the last car? It's going to be all
So
new.
we
It's
were
obviously going to have a lot of demand.
Yeah, so we are doing 10,000 a month at the moment with the current Brezza. So with the new Brezza, obviously we are wanting to increase volumes as also the market share. So even though we are leading with about 18-19% of the market share in this segment, we would like to increase it. We don't have a number in mind actually, except to say that we hope we expect it to increase substantially, because it all depends on the overall market. It also depends on how the segment evolves. It also depends on how we are able to get our act together in terms of marketing communication and the sales push. But we definitely, the trend which we expect is that it will add substantially to our volumes.
Considering the age of your previous generation and also the fact that it was on its way out and that was sort of known a little bit at least, 10,000 a month. I mean, other people would kill for that kind of a number.
Yes, absolutely. So Brezza has been the leader in the compact SUV ever since it was launched. It's also in the top 10 vehicles for the last 6 years since its launch. So in that sense, it's a large volume model, and you rightly pointed out, an outgoing model doing 10,000 vehicles a month is a pretty good showing. But obviously, the upside is still there because SUV segment is growing. This segment, as I said, has become the largest, and therefore we would like to continue to dominate this segment with the Brezza.
No, as I'm sure you will, because of course the model is very popular to begin with. So there's no real surprise on that. And yeah, I know you may not have a number in mind, but I can already think 15,000, if not more. But
So,
which leads me to just two last points. The first is
yes.
with those kind of staggering numbers, and it's not as if your other cars are not selling. Everything is pretty much full pump. All these shortages and all the supply issues that have created havoc in the industry, obviously you've been affected by them too. The car, like you mentioned, is very tech heavy, so obviously it also requires that much more compared to the previous car in terms of semiconductors, etc. How are you preparing for that? Because there will be a huge demand, no doubt.
Yeah, so you are right. In the last couple of years, we have seen the demand outpacing the supply, and that's one reason why even as we speak today, we have 315,000 plus bookings with us pending for delivery. But I also believe that the situation is getting better, and if we see the last 7-8 months, the situation has got better for us. We were doing, just remember, 40% of our production plan in September last. It went up to
Yeah.
almost 90% in Jan Feb, 95% in April, in March and April, and it's expected to go up actually. So the availability seems to be getting better. We are doing our production planning better in terms of the varianting that strategy that we have. We have the luxury, of course, because we have the maximum number of models in our portfolio, so we can do that production adjustment, and that's how we have done so far. And I expect that this problem, although will remain in this month and maybe in a short period for the future as well, but I think it's getting better. And that could become, we obviously have to look at a scenario where the demand is larger than what it is today. So we have to look at that demand scenario, and this new Brezza will help us achieve that. Remember, last year we did volumes which was same as 2016-17 as an industry. Industry did just volumes which it did 5 years back. So obviously there is a scope with a growing economy for this number to go up substantially, and we need to prepare for it.
But given the powerhouse status of the Brezza, have you already built up some inventory? Are you prioritizing production? Because, like I keep saying, I know that there's going to be huge demand on your hands.
Yeah, so production that part, the old Brezza production has stopped, and the new production has begun for the Brezza. Obviously, when we launch the vehicle, and when we actually launch with the price on the 30th of this month, there is a certain volume which we need to build up, and that is a normal process which we do, and this is same thing is true for this new Brezza as well.
Okay, fair enough. So that last point is, of course, now with this buyer being so sensitive to changes and very aware as well. You mentioned the mild hybrid system on this car that it drives in with, but future projections. There's so much talk about electrification, whether it's full-blown hybrid, whether it is full electrification. For this particular segment, what are your sort of forecasts?
So we have always been saying that for the Indian market, we believe the road to electric is through electrification, which is through the hybrid route. And I think going forward, you would see cases where you will see the hybrid market increasing dramatically in the interest of consumers in this segment increasing, including strong hybrids. We are talking of mild hybrids at the moment, but including strong hybrids. Well, that's something which we have to wait for and see which direction it takes. But we believe that the road to electric is through electrification.
But your Heartech platform is already equipped to handle some of these changes.
Absolutely.
In the future. Great. You mentioned, of course, you will have the pricing very soon. It's at the end of this month. I know people can't wait. There is always a good expectation that you will, really excite the market with that as well. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Thank you. Thank you, Siddharth. It was great interacting with you.
I don't have to say it, and I don't have to say it, but all the best with the launch.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.